Okay, so today we're going to be just having this one video recording and we're going to jump right into page 192. Then the other page that you have assigned is a math box page, page 191, and I'll write down your assignments at the end for you. Okay, so now that you're on page 192, I copied down all of the problems on here, but I'm going to read out loud what our directions are. Use only a compass, a straight edge, and a sharp pencil. Use rulers and protractors only to check your work. Do not trace. All of this we've gone over before. This is the directions are telling you to make your constructions on a separate piece of paper. We're not going to be doing that. We'll do it right on our math journal page. You'll have room to do that. If you do decide to do that, it'll be a little extra work and then you'll need to cut out your work and neatly tape it in the page. Okay, so looking at number 1, our directions are to copy this angle, and when you are finished, check your work with your protractor, which remember we need to know some math vocabulary here. Protractor would be on our geometry template to measure, and this was our full circle protractor, and then we're using our compass and any straight edge you have. I'll be using my template. Okay, so first things first, I'm not going to measure anything. I'm just going to make a straight line, and that will be the bottom of my angle. So right now I tried to draw a straight line like this. We haven't measured anything yet. And next what I'm going to need to do is I'm just going to make a little dot right there so I know where to line up my compass. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this here and make a little line. Whoops, now my compass moved. See how I'm lining it up with my vertex there? So I'm going to go like this and draw a line covering both parts of my angle. So it should look like this. Now I'm going to scoot over. Notice I didn't move my compass at all. So I'm going to scoot over and do the same thing here. Now I don't know where my line will be, so I'm going to make it nice and long just to make sure that my new line will cover it. The next thing that I'm going to do is, and you need to follow these exact same steps, so pause if you need to make sure you have this done. Now I'm going to take my compass and line it up here on that point where I made my intersection and try to line up my pencil there where I made my other intersection. So if you want to practice, you'll have a line that looks something like that. And I know my hand covers up a little bit. Now we're going to go over, see our compass is going to be lined up in the same spot. So I'm going to line it up here, carefully make my intersection, and now where these two compass lines intersect right there, that's where I'm going to be lining up my straight edge and drawing my line. Now my pencil's a little dull, so I'm going to try to be really careful with how I line this up. See, I was a little off there. So I'll measure and check my work. If I'm off, I might need to redo that because you can tell, if you look carefully, I didn't quite go through the center. So I'm going to check my work here. The original is around 50 degrees. So that means that, that means that my copy should be around 50 degrees. It's a little less, like 47 maybe. So I'm more around 45, which is pretty close, but I do need to make sure. I'll probably have to go back and fix that one. So you measure yours as well. Make sure that you have what you need. Okay, moving on to number 2. Now we're copying this quadrangle, and it's quadrangle, let's see, D, E, F, G. You already have this in your book. So to copy this, we have a few things that we need to do. The first thing that I'm going to do is make that straight line again for my base, that line segment DG, and start there. The next thing that I'm going to do is measure, so my D prime will be here. I'm going to measure from D to G on my original quadrangle. My compass is a little slippy today, which I know you guys have dealt with. Okay, now I'm going to go over, very carefully line it up, very carefully without moving my compass, moving that apart, I mean. make my line, and that is where my G prime will be. Now this is where it gets a little bit trickier. So I can keep going around and I can keep measuring from point to point. And what I'm going to want to do then, I'll go ahead and I'm going to do from G to F, and we'll make that mark. Now that doesn't mean that we know exactly where it is yet, but we're going to use that mark and find where those lines intersect. Now the only other point I know is point D right now, so I'm going to go back and go from D to F. And again, we're lining up very, very carefully, so take your time, don't rush it. I'm going to tilt my page just a little bit here so you can see. Now I have that new intersection, so this should be F prime. And I'm going to try to connect those and look and see. And it's okay to check your work along the way. So right now, to me that looks a little bit odd, but what I'm going to do is I'll just measure and see if my line segments are about the same length, and then I know that I'm on track. So I should have 6 centimeters. I'll see if I have 6 centimeters here, yep. And then for line segment FG, I should have around about 3.5 centimeters. So I should have about 3.5 right here. Yes, I do. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back and try to figure out that final point E, and where I'll have my E prime. So E prime, I'm gonna go ahead and measure from D to E. Again, lining it up on your original very carefully, lining it up here. And whoops, see now I bumped mine. I make a pretty big swoop when I do it, just because you don't know exactly where that point will be. So the smaller that it is, the more tricky it will be to find. You can always go back and erase. And now you might be able to guess. I could do this a couple of ways. I could try to measure from G to E. I could do from F to G. Since I already checked my work and I know that both of these are accurate, it really shouldn't matter too much. So I'm going to go ahead from my original F to E and line it up. Again, making a bigger swoop, and you can see that they did cross. So this should be where my E prime is. And I'm going to go ahead and connect them, and then I'll do some measurement here. So E prime, connect it to F prime, D, connect it to E. Notice that I'm using a straight edge. You need to use a straight edge when you're making your construction. And then I'm going to check E to F. That should be about 3 centimeters. It's a little bit over, that's good. And then line segment DE would be 3, which is very close. Now something else, if these are off at all, go and check your angles. If all of your line segments are measured correctly, your angles should be correct. But you can see, like if I check this one, this angle D is 70. So this angle D also needs to be 70, which it is. So that's how we can make that construction. Number 3 is a little bit of a challenge, so I'm going to start you off with this. I know this video is a little bit longer, but I want to start you with it, and then I'm going to see if you can finish it on your own. So I'm going to label my points here. We had triangle A, B, C. Okay, first thing as always, I'm making that straight line. Really, I could start with any of these. It just would, it's a little bit easier for me to see that this is straight, rather than trying to turn it and do that, but it doesn't matter. So if you want to challenge yourself and start a different way, you sure can. I'm going to make this my A prime, this point right here. Grab our compass again, and you guys probably know the drill by now. Go from A to B. I'm going to line it up carefully. Go from A, make a mark. If you're noticing that your compass slips like that, and then you just keep drawing, that's going to be off. So make sure that you're really putting that point in your paper and holding your compass up by the top here, which feels kind of weird and loose, but that's one way to kind of keep it in place. This will be B prime. And then we're going to go ahead and find C prime. But if you read the directions, you know that we are not just being asked to reconstruct this triangle, we are being asked to construct a triangle that is twice as long on each side. Okay, now I have to go back and do my A to C, which is the same. Good to double check though and not just guess. Okay, so I have all of my points here, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about how to make it double, but I am going to try to leave it for you to finish on your own. Connecting, and we should be double checking our work before we move on. You can always double check it in the middle, you're just not using your measurement for the actual construction. So I should have about 2.5 centimeters there, and then 2 for A to C, and also 2 for line segment BC, which I do. So I checked my work. Now, if I want to be making something, these are going to be changing because my new triangle will be twice as big. If I'm going to be making something twice as big, like a triangle, I'm going to start off like this with my compass, and then what I need to do, and you could use, if you checked your work like I did, you could use your copy, but you're going to be measuring, let's say AB, and you're simply going to go over now, and instead of starting at AB, go over to B and double that line. So now B prime is not in the middle there. B prime will be here. See how we doubled our length? So your job now is to double the length of this side, and then check your work.